Hello and welcome to the theElpyDimension. I am your guide, Elpy. This is worm bin number 2. Today is the 17th of November 2024. It has been 7 days since I've been in here. I'm looking, I need castings and I need them today. So this is just a quick, and I figured I'd record it because I am going to attempt to root some fig cuttings. So I decided to come in here, and right off the bat I noticed there's worms on top. And if you've seen any of the other videos for this bin, you know that part of my problem has been that these castings are way too wet, and every time I come in here to harvest castings I find that the castings are actually full of worms. And I was hoping today at least I was hoping there wouldn't be as many worms in here, and I was at least hoping that there were no worms on top, so I could at least just take some of the castings out, which I am still going to do. However, I mean, the worms I see look healthy, but I was really kind of hoping that they would be like, yay, new stuff. So what I did last time was I did what I did in bin 1 a couple months ago, and I pushed some of this material, a lot of this material, over this way so that I could put new material in here and just focus on harvesting this half. So this bin was a lot more shallow than it currently is, and that's what I did. And then I did not put the bigger paper bag worm blanket over this, so that, as you saw, this side I left open and exposed so that it would dry out more, which on top it's pretty nice, but I can already see that farther down it's still moist, which is not surprising. And there are worms throughout. So actually I need to remember that the point here, while I need castings, if I was smart I would have taken my castings I need first. I just want to put a little bit in the potting soil before I put my cuttings in. I just flung worm castings onto my face. Actually, like onto my mouth. But I do need to stir this up. So yeah, there are a lot of worms in these castings. And it's not normally the case. I feel like, guys, why won't you leave the castings alone? Why don't you go into the new material? Come on already. But they're still, hold on. But they are still just all in here. And I know I'm gonna find worms in the other stuff, but they are liking these castings still yet way more than I want them to. And I suspect, no doubt, that's in part because at least these leaves are dry. On top here, right off the bat, there's some worms where there's moisture. Yep. So they're in the leaves. They're happily in the leaves. The mice are in the leaves too. I fed them some tomato, cut tomato, and a whole gross tomato as well. I think there was a small eggplant, a pepper. Then I put the leaves and some, stinks right off the bat. Wonder what is stinking like that. This was an amaranth stalk. Might be that, but the stink is disconcerting. The level to which it's stinking is like, worms in this corner. Yeah, and there's some pepper plant. Yeah, the more I dive down here, the more it stinks. Worms all throughout the leaves. Well, not all throughout. There's not like a ton of worms in the leaves. But where the leaves are wet, there are worms. There are mites all throughout. And guys, I did, these leaves I just gathered up from outside. They weren't mulched. I just scooped them up and brought them in here. It definitely... Now, seeing the leaves, I know why there aren't more worms over here, because these aren't very wet. There's some moisture here and there, well, especially over here. But overall, and where the leaves are wet, again, there are worms. So that's why the worms are not in the, not over here more than they're still in the castings. Oh yeah, and I put this piece of dried pine wood. There's a baby worm slash wisp. I mean, maybe that's a wisp. Well, maybe a baby worm is the same as a wisp, and I'm just categorizing them as wisps being really small, like newborn worms. So yeah, the farther down we get, this pepper was not edible. It was mushy, but it was green, and it has ripened. What was this pepper? I thought this was... a Jimmy Nardello. Why is it turning yellow? Here is the eggplant. Ooh, what do we have here? Oh, I thought that was a worm for a second. Okay, a caterpillar, I mean. All right, you see just how much as I dig in here, how much material I put down here. It looks like, oh yeah, did I say brassica greens? Mites and worms, not very many worms. Tomato skins. Not a whole lot of room for me to look around here. I do remember that I dumped a whole bunch of water. I dumped water to help wet the leaves. But as we would expect, what we got more than anything was just what the castings I couldn't. It was sort of an, I would have preferred to have removed more of the castings from the bottom before I added the new material, but I was sort of desperate. Oh, the eggplant isn't what stinks. It must be the tomato remains. But you see, yeah, as to be expected, this stuff, these old castings are extra wet. And that's where all the worms are. Down in the castings. So, I'm gonna interrupt their party. What's up, guys? Hello, beautifuls. How am I going to interrupt their party? We're going to spoon out some more of the castings that are buried under here. And I can feel how mushy they are. You see that they're like mud. Okay. Here's what we got going on here. And mud pie. What? Healthy worms. Look at that bulging clitellum. And then I'm going to fish some of these leaves that are underneath here. See what I'm doing here? We're going to put the leaves we needed to do from the get-go. See, this stuff wants to fall over. Hold on. But we need the leaves, more leaves down here than these mushy castings. Now it can fall over. At least let's have some layering going on, right? Not feeding today, by the way. Should I feed? Oh, that's the other part that we need to be doing, is sort of mixing in. Well, I guess trying to mix in the dry leaves is not necessary because they can continue to act as a blanket. Should I feed today? Well, not right now. I'll have to do another video perhaps tomorrow for feeding. At least we brought some air circulation in. We mixed the leaves down in with the worms and the worm castings. Perhaps tonight or tomorrow I'll feed couple other bins and we'll come back and give these guys a feeding. So to recap, a week ago I didn't harvest. I've done some harvesting in the past couple of weeks or 3 weeks because I've needed castings. So I just went in and scooped some castings out, but not an official harvest. We've got lots of worms of all ages and sizes, so the bin population is healthy, but they're not moving out of the old castings, so they still like the old castings. So last time I did what I did before in bin 1, and I just moved the older, as much of the older material as I could over to the left, and I added new material. So I've essentially harvested 2/3 to 3/4 of this material. I say that because I left a lot more castings behind than I normally do. But you see I added a lot of leaves. That's the new bedding. And today I am still going to, I'm going to harvest out some of these castings into the bucket I have because I need them. I don't need that many, but I need some. So we're gonna, and we didn't feed today, but we might come back and feed in the next couple of days. I am going to, of course, first handful I grabbed had a bunch of worms in it. That was the mistake I made, is that I should have scooped out what little castings I needed, and then turned the material, but oh well. I am gonna pick all the bigger worms out that I see. I'm not gonna take a fine tooth comb, so to speak, to these castings. If a couple of baby worms make it out, fine. But I just saw a cocoon. I do need some castings. I think I'm gonna be taking 3 fig cuttings. I think they'll all be from my Italian honey fig, mainly because why? Because the leaves or the branches grew so low, I don't want them where they're at on the plant. Stay tuned. I probably will record that. So that should be, I take 3, that should be enough castings. Well, I might take a little bit, 4. I'm also bringing my, I already brought the winter savory inside. It is perennial and it can survive the winter, but mine that I started in March for the Planter Garden Herb Challenge, which stay tuned because there will be a 2025, I believe, starting March 1st as before. It's just a really small plant, and I could leave it for the winter and see how it does. I mean, it's in my green stock right now though, so I didn't want to plant it in my perennial herb garden, because I think I'd rather sort of bulk it up indoors this winter. And again, I'm picking out worms, and I've found 2 or 3 cocoons. I'll make that 3 or 4. Or 5. Yeah, so these worms are really breeding, especially in the old castings, which is, I want them to breed, but I don't want them to breed in the old castings. All right, so that's all I'm going to take for what I'm doing, what I need these for. And we will just, I will feed in here in the next couple of days. Or I might not wind up feeding in there. Well, no, because I do want them to be enticed to go over there. However, in this instant, I'm sort of thinking that while they like the leaves, they probably would enjoy it if I add some paper in there, because the paper holds moisture better than these current. I know they're dead leaves. They're more recently dead, you know, in the last month. So the layers of them hold water in between, but they aren't really holding water like these castings are. Obviously, this moisture level is more what they're interested in. The leaves are new food material, but the castings are the moisture that they want. So, funny part is I bet there are other beds that have material that I could also just be taking some out of. All right, well, that was it for the 10th of November 2020, 17th of November 2024, 7 days after I didn't harvest, but I added new material to this bin in the hopes of harvesting soon. And I guess we're still harvesting. We're still hoping for a harvest. But stay tuned, because I need to check in on the other 4 bins. It's been a while for some of them, and I'm pretty sure they all need to be fed by now. All right, let me know in the comments what you think, and if you have any suggestions. I appreciate your time and your interest. Be safe, be well. Bye for now.